troops, I saw a bear here. Today, we'll be taking a look at infantry quality of life changes in a suggestion series for Foxhole. A way to save you a click, hopefully. I'm specifically looking at this from an infantry perspective, but from all roles of infantry on the battlefield. Why? Well, because
we're the infantry, Corporal, and God loves the infantry!
So with that out of the way, what will I be covering? First off, what exactly it is I mean by quality of life within the context of this presentation. Changes to various player menus and interactions, few minor mechanical changes, and these changes will be categorized by battlefield roles, so hopefully everyone gets something out of this. What I won't be covering, however, are things like large sweeping mechanical changes, balance or rebalancing changes, full role reworks, or fancy new tech or items. These are separate topics in of themselves. So, what's my definition for quality of life in this case? Well, changes that reduce having to open up menus, changes that save you a click, changes that reduce repetitive actions, changes that clear up the user interface or UI, and changes that ease logistical strains / loads. Some small mechanical changes will be thrown in here as well, but I want to keep those to a minimum if possible. I want to make this as easy for the developers to implement. I've realized quality of life could mean a lot more than what I've listed here for a lot of people. However, all the possibilities for quality of life, we'd be here for 5 hours. I don't want to do that tonight. So, I want to save you from having to look at these more than you have to. So, first up on the docket, building and logistics. Better assembly material icons. Seen them in game, you know that they look pretty damn similar. The little icons in the corner doesn't tell you if it's assembly mats 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So I would personally just slap a bunch of Roman numerals on all of them. It's simple, but it would get the point across quicker. Auto-clicking functions. There was a discussion a long time ago from the devs saying that the construction vehicle was meant to be a 2-seater vehicle, 2 players working, 1 driver, and 1 constructor. So instead, they simplified that to have the driver also have the construction controls. Now, a lot of players in Foxhole have simply gotten tired of pressing and holding the left mouse button to do certain actions, and so they download auto-click functions. I think it's time for the devs to face the reality and just add the option to toggle certain actions like building or scrapping. You know, something like a toggle option in the menu. Colored storage boxes. This is a feature that's already applied to storage containers to help to distinguish them from each other. Build/scrapping stamina usage. This is potential for a future suggestion series on stamina that I'm planning. I won't get too much into detail about it, but maybe the ability to sacrifice some of your stamina to get a little bit of extra scrap faster or something like that might break up the monotony of building or scrapping. Using sledgehammers, giving them an alternate function to destroy structures. One of the most annoying things to see is after capturing a town, everyone having to run to town hall to grab a bunch of high explosive grenades and go and blow up the buildings that the enemy has already abandoned. I'm sure logistics, when they see that, always want to pull their hair out having to supply a town with the explosives for the soldiers to blow up a bunch of abandoned structures. The hammers and the shovels already have an alternate function to upgrade structures. Why not give the sledgehammers an alternate function to break them down? Faction-specific blueprints. All blueprints in the game right now are blue. That doesn't tell you whether it's a warden or a colonial building it, so when you go to shoot that blueprint and then you realize you've caused friendly damage to a teammate's structure, that kind of sucks. A way to distinguish it would kind of help. Correct the false building zones, either by making them red or by making them buildable. This is especially noticeable with connector trenches. Sometimes you'll get the yellow outline indicating that you can build something there, only for it to tell you that the terrain is unsuitable, or that something is in your way or blocking you. This is just one of those annoying things that builders have to deal with. It would be nice if they, didn't have to deal with those sort of things. Change the too soon to build timer / amount of tries, especially for people building bunkers. It's very annoying to have to deal with the act of setting up a square bunker and then removing it because you don't like its placement, trying to place a second one down only for you to get a message saying that it's too soon to build. What I would suggest, short of just removing this requirement that it's too soon to build altogether, would be to allow builders to place down, let's say, 2 or 3 structure zones in a row before activating the too soon to build timer. That way you can at least get the spacing for certain bunkers that you want to build without having to bump into the 2 or 3 or 4 seconds of waiting every time you have to undo a bunker piece just because it wasn't placed quite right or because the terrain didn't work with you. Blueprints as well should be placeable while crouched or prone. I don't really know why you can't do that now as is. And I would also suggest that they should be repairable while crouched or prone. Infantry, some auxiliary changes, I think. The big one that I'm going to push forward is auto-equip pickups. So, picture this. Infantrymen on the front line. You have no equipment on you. You see a backpack on the ground, but you see an enemy approaching in the distance. You search that backpack for a rifle. You find a rifle, and then, that's right, you place the rifle in your backpack and then have to reopen your backpack inventory in order to equip that rifle into your hands to then shoot the enemy. This is a really silly thing. I think this can be fixed with an if-then statement code. If your primary equipment slot is empty, then any weapon that you pick up off a backpack automatically gets equipped to that slot. Your character equipment inventory shown on the inventory screen. Just having to open your character's menu several times in a row just to do simple things. If you want to, let's say you have a weapon equipped and you have ammo in your inventory and you want to dump all of that into a base, you have to go into your inventory, unequip all your weapons, and then go into the base's inventory to then dump all of your weapons and ammo into it. It would be nice if all of those menus were just shown on the same screen so you could just dump everything all at once without having to access multiple menus. That also would, I understand, probably require a drag and drop system, but I think having to open multiple menus is more annoying than dragging and dropping certain things. Likewise, this can be also extended to things like factories and facilities and their inventories as well. Bring back the details on faction flags. This is something I've been missing for a long time. Here's some examples from back in the old days of the Warden and the Colonial flag. Flags are pretty hard to distinguish in Foxhole. The blue and the green are very similar colors. This is just one of those things that I think is going to save on a lot of friendly fire damage, but as well just cut out a lot of ambiguity around things that are going to kill you in a couple of shots, and so you don't have to crank the gamma all the way up. On the combat side, trench elevation changes. This has kind of been an issue for, well, since trenches were introduced. It's really bloody hard to hit someone in a trench. Someone standing in a trench should be harder to hit, make no mistake. But it's seemingly impossible to hit someone in a trench. Now there's definitely a couple of ways that devs can tackle this, but I think honestly just making the trenches just a little bit shallower so that an enemy player's head sticks slightly higher above the trench parapet so that they're just a little bit easier to shoot in the head would make a big difference. Punching is really finicky in Foxhole. As much as I love the fight clubs, I think punching needs a little bit of a rework. Well, to be fair, melee combat in general needs some additions, but punching isn't attached to your mouse cursor, it's attached to whichever direction your character is facing. Although, yes, you can aim with the right mouse button to punch. Either way, I think it could use a little bit of a rework. A reduction in shadow dancing. I've been talking about this for years. Shadow dancing is still a thing in Foxhole. For those of you who don't know what I mean, shadow dancing is the art of because the time to actually raise your weapon and shoot at the enemy is almost instantaneous. The second you hit the right mouse button, you are ready to fire. It won't be very accurate, but as long as you can keep moving and keep shooting, you're likely to win a fight. This, as much as it does require skill, this ultimately does look silly and somewhat ruins the positional nature of firefights in Foxhole. My suggestion for this would simply be to make a half-second to maybe 1 second long animation of your character actually raising their weapon to a state where they can fire it from the shoulder. I don't think that would slow the gameplay down too much, but it certainly would cut down on shadow dancing. Gas should probably make you not bleed. It's really annoying, but again, this will probably be for a future suggestion series regarding stamina. Okay. One thing that for sure needs to change, though, is the proning speed. Crawling in Foxhole is way too slow. If you are in a prone position in Foxhole and someone throws a grenade at you, you basically might as well just give up. It's just too slow. Crawling is too slow. Getting up and down into the prone or out of prone is far too slow. People are far more likely to go crouch than they are prone to take cover, because proning, it's just too much of a death sentence in a lot of cases in Foxhole. No damage slowdown is something I've been a big proponent of for years, but once again, I'll save that for a future suggestion series, so let me know in the comments if you're interested to know what I think about that. And auto-equipping Ignifists is one that's been suggested by a lot of Colonial players. I'm on the fence about it, but Ignifists, much like their real-life counterparts, the Panzerfausts, are actually quite small rocket tubes, so you could actually carry multiple of them outside of a backpack. But also the ability to cycle grenades, because like in this photo, grenades aren't carried in your backpack, they are carried on your person. So why should we as Foxhole players have to go into our backpacks, yet again into our inventories, just to be able to cycle through grenades? You can already cycle through grenades on certain vehicles, like the Warden Super Heavy Tank. Why not that ability as infantry? Medics and medical buildings. Auto-submitting patients to the hospital. Why is it, after I dump a patient into a hospital, do I then have to go into the hospital inventory and submit them to the hospital? That should be done automatically. If there is an open space in the hospital, then auto-submit a patient that is placed in the hospital from a player. Bringing back the ability to hold wounds in place. Those of you who weren't here years ago, before being able to carry teammates to safety and slowing their wounds that way, you used to be able to crouch down on the ground over a wounded teammate and hold their wounds in place. While carrying wounded soldiers and slowing their wounds down at the same time is far more useful, there is a case where this could make a comeback, and that's for wounded soldiers who are encumbered, because you cannot pick them up. Being able to hold their wounds in place would at least give them a chance to live if a medic comes by. Vaulting with wounded up obstacles. This is one that every medic knows very well. If you have a wounded player in a trench, you might as well just leave them there because you can't get them up. But for some reason, you can do that with critically wounded players. So it's weird that you can do it with one, but not the other. So for drivers and vehicles, oh, this one's obvious. No quick killing infantry on the sides/rear of vehicles. The second infantry touch the side or the rear of a vehicle is basically instant death for them. That has resulted in more team kills than almost anything in the game, at least since AP mines were taken out. Extended driver views, so that drivers can see ahead of themselves a bit more. These two suggestions would also cut down on friendly team kills with vehicles, which would in turn help logistics by not having to provide as many shirts for friendlies who are run over. The ability to turn off lights/engines on vehicles, make it easier for either partisans to commandeer and then hide in enemy vehicles, or for logistic players to perhaps avoid a patrol here and there. The ability to cancel wrenching. You're able to cancel pulling supplies from bases now. I figure the ability to cancel wrenching a truck, or even barbed wire, since it is such a very long process, especially in the heat of battle. More for side seats to do in vehicles. The ability to draw secondary weapons for self-defense, again, might help logistical players, especially if they have someone in the side seat. Or maybe adding some sort of side car light It's an interesting idea if flight mechanics ever become more prevalent, but something for side seats in vehicles to do rather than just sit there would be kind of nice. Some other general UI quality of life changes I would suggest. Spawning. The ability to select a loadout. I don't mean being able to pull anything from a base for your character before they spawn. Being able to pull anything before you spawn would hamper logistics severely because more people would be tempted to take more items. What I mean is just give us the ability to choose between saying yes or no to taking either our hammer or our pistols. The first thing anyone does when they spawn in is immediately go into the base's inventory, either deposit their hammers and pistols, or their pistols, or their hammers. Typing while dead. Okay, this is a bit more of a glitch, I figure, because you can actually type while you're dead. However, if you are typing while you're alive, and then you get killed while you're still typing, the chat interface becomes all weird, and it stops you from being able to type. But then if you press enter again, you're allowed to resume typing your message. It's a weird thing, but I think a lot of you know what I'm talking about. That should just be fixed. Alt-clicking on someone should center the context menu in the center of your screen, because if you're trying to alt-click on someone either to commend them or to report them at the edge of your screen, sometimes the menu goes off-screen or cuts off at the edge of the screen. That's annoying to have to deal with. And more bikes, because I think more transportation would be nice. Also, I am putting a reference back to my Home Sweet Home region video on Foxhole's Aging Tutorial Island. So, some closing thoughts. All roles in Foxhole can benefit from spending less time accessing inventories. All roles can benefit from a reduction of clicks just to get certain tasks done. All this to say, don't speed up the gameplay, but speed up getting to the gameplay. And lastly, a closing question. What's a click or a menu interaction you think is currently unnecessary in Foxhole? Leave a comment down below. The devs do like to go over these videos, though. If you describe it well enough in the comments, they might just take that into consideration. I will have on my YouTube community tab a poll running for what you guys think the next topic for me to cover in these series should be. Most likely the next video I will be releasing will be the lore gameplay update suggestions, since I already have a script up and going for those. But afterwards, I'll consider what wins in the poll for the next episode. Thank you once again, and as always, good luck, your heads down, and stay in your foxholes. Bear out.